Morgan Rae Johnson, from the age of 5 to 16, was trained by a CIA Ultra Soldier program. She went on to enlist in the US Army, and after enlisting, she was recruited into a secret space program where she did two 20 and back tours. She went to officer school and became a major or commander of a ship, a position which is rarely held by women in these secret space programs. And she's here today on Exopolitics Today to discuss her book and her incredible experiences with secret space programs.
You are listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, welcome, Morgan, to Exopolitics Today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is kind of my coming out into the disclosure community, and I appreciate having a platform.
Well, your story is really an amazing one. Now, I think we should go to the beginning for people that don't know anything about you. I think there's a walk-in experience. So you want to kind of like explain that and when that happened.
Yes. So when a past life prior to this one, I made a soul contract with a girl that I knew was not going to be able to make it through her life. So on the other side, we were able to see portions of what a life would look like. And we knew that she was going to go into the MK Ultra program. And so I was a stronger, older soul, and I wanted to come in and be one to bring forward some new information, to be able to be strong enough to handle this part of the conversation where I'm here coming forward and talking to you. From my memory, it's about between 3 and 5 years old when I walked in to her life. She left me, oh my gosh, it's in the book. I want to say around 30. My guess is around 30, 31 years old. She left because there had been too much intensity. And there, as you will hear, there has been a lot of intensity in my life.
So that's very interesting. So even though you had a soul agreement where you would come in and take over the body, the original soul inhabitant would stayed with you till 31. That is that usual for walk-ins? I thought that they would kind of like substitute out really quick.
So the idea was, because I was an older soul, I had more energy to get into the body, which was going to make it necessary for us to survive. And so the idea was, by both of us being in there, that I should say, that it would allow more energetic space to be created by both of us. And that when she left, that space would still be there and I could fill with more of my own energy once she left. So it was the plan the whole time. And no, it's not a normal walk-in contract.
Mm-hmm. So at some point, you're very young, you're in kindergarten, and the military come along and test your blood type. And what happened next?
So they took me they came into my classroom, came in with a little device, took me out to the hallway, took my blood, and it said O negative and 117, and then took me straight to the Elitist Academy, which is where they train ultra soldiers. So it was somewhere in the vicinity of Fort Lewis. I know it was in the area of that. It was a big Victorian building where they taught a handful of kids. I mean, there was only like 5 kids in my class at a time. So usually it was 4 boys and me. And kids came from all over the world to train. I just so happened to be in the area. I was about 2 hours away. So they'd pick me up from school for gymnastics practice or on the weekends. They had fake families in town where that would become my friends. Their kids would become my friends. And then so they would take me on the weekends when I said that I was hanging out with them.
Now, did your parents give permission for this to happen? I mean, was there some process whereby they consented to you being taken away and being trained at this elitist academy?
That's a good question. I also I have some idea of that. That's not my business when it comes to like both my stepdad and my dad were in the military. And so I think one of them got in trouble. And I think to cover up that trouble, they offered me. I also don't think they remember that. There's a lot of memory taking. There's a lot of, that's kind of why the book's called Manipulated Memories. They definitely don't leave those agreements to the conscious mind because that would just start a whole bunch of problems.
Hmm.
So yes, I think they agreed, and I think they got paid. Sorry.
That's okay. So you're at the elitist academy with a very unusual name, and you get a aesthetics certificate. So can you, or diploma of aesthetics? So yeah, can you explain that?
No, that's after. That's after 16. So I that was when I was like 30 exactly. So that's after the military.
I see. So this diploma had nothing to do with the
No,
elitist academy.
no.
I see. So there was just something that you did for your own kind of like educational
Yeah,
growth. I see. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, so from age 5 to age 16, you're at this elitist academy, and you're being trained in and subjected to various things. So one of the things that you're trained in is psychic remote viewing. So you want to explain what happened?
Yeah, so remote viewing would have been the one of the first things they started molding the kids to learn. It was visualization and just different ways to look at objects or people or look for things, vehicles. Yeah, it could be wars, it could be on different timelines, it could be at different ages. It could be, 1900s, it could be 920 BC. Anything that these leaders wanted to find or find out information on just for their own understanding, they would have us kids come in and do a visualization and an entire step-by-step playbook of exactly how to get the information that they wanted. And we did it for all kinds of things, alien races, we did it for wars, we did it just to find humans in certain areas. It was very but like I said, with the memories at the time, they always took the conscious short-term memory. So I didn't get those memories back for a long time.
I see. So did they use any techniques to enhance the remote viewing abilities of children?
Yes, they use sound. So on the it would be a small intercom like booth, and there would be an intercom on one side and a telephone to give commands. So giving commands was a big thing at the elitist. Different parts of the brain are useful when it comes to different techniques, and also when switching into ultra soldier mode and things like that, there's always going to be commands that are given. So there's always a phone nearby, and then the intercom is going to play high frequencies to slow down the mind and get the brain into the theta state where it can be calm enough to get the information.
Mm. Now, you went through a MK Ultra mind splitting training and creation of an alter personality,
Yeah.
this Ultra Soldier Mia 369. So, yeah, can you explain that?
Yes, that was done through trauma. They called them tests. We knew of them like as the kids as experiments. So it's just different ways to say the same thing. Traumatizing experiences. We went through things like waterboarding, or having like animals, like big animals like lions or alligators come really close to us and like be swatting and like almost get to us, to where it would scare us so much that our minds needed to protect itself, and so that it would go into a traumatized state. And like now energetically I can even still feel the line that was created, that it was like a separate part of myself was pushed into another area, that was that original soul originally when she was here. And so they had split the two of us. I have evolved now so much so that it is all me, and that I hold both sets of memories. But at the time, that's what it was easier for them to split my memories. One, because I'm a Gemini and that energy makes it easier. And two, because I believe they knew about the walk-in soul contract. I think they knew that I was coming.
So with this creation of an alter personality, I mean, they create that through trauma-based experiments,
Yeah.
training, whatever you want to call it, waterboarding and so forth, to
Yeah.
children, and
Yeah.
they create that alter personality. And how do they summon that alter personality? Is there a particular code they use to
Yeah.
bring that up? And then I assume they just work with that alter in their program.
Yes, the usually with a phone call, it's and that personality, so there'll be different types of key phrases. So it'll be just one sentence, depending on what it was, what kind of mode they were looking for. But it was always going to be Mia. It's just that what she was, there's like an intel track, there's the remote viewing track, and then there's different other tracks through the MK Ultra, like the Monarch program, things like that. I was mostly intel and remote viewing, to my knowledge at this point. That's what I'll say. But the moment you hear that phrase, you switch personalities, and then when you go to sleep, you wake up the original personality. So I never remembered it.
I see. And so more recently, as you've done all this work in regaining your memories, and you've been able to integrate that alter personality and all the memories of that. What was that like? I mean, I guess the alter personality must have done things that would have been shocking to you.
Oh yeah. She was definitely me, I'll say that. But she had her own, she was non-emotional. So she had no like attraction towards the or looking for any type of sexual attraction in any way. That was just kind of deleted from the her programming. It wasn't something she even thought about. She did know about me. I did write in the book a little bit about her from her perspective. It was intense. She did some very interesting things. She dressed more provocatively than I did, but that's all. It was all just tactics to get information. So she was mostly intel. There were some wild things that happened, and this book is the first of a three-part series. I will go more into her memories and her experiences in the second book. This one was about Morgan's specific memories.
Now, so your alter personality and the training that you went through
Yeah.
was the creation of this ultra soldier.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between an ultra soldier and a super soldier?
To me, the way they made it seem to me was that they were hiding us, because they'd send us to parties and things like that, or they'd send us to gatherings, like Illuminati stuff. Like there was some wild things, some really interesting things, but we were never out in the open. We were never like, um, had a mission to go do, and then like other people could know about it. I don't know how to, it's a tough way to explain. We were kids who were hiding as regular kids. And so we would go and get information the best we could. Usually it was like digging through people's dresser drawers or their offices, or it was a more secret and low-key way to do it. They also tailored our identities to be very docile, to be very to seem non-intelligent, so acting almost ditzy. It was, I think, the type of soldier. I would say a super soldier is someone who knows they're strong, and someone who acts strong, and someone who gets the job done and has maybe other people they're working with in a different way. I'm not 100% sure about the super soldier program. I don't know much about it. I
Okay.
saw. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say. So it sounds as though the ultra soldier was really trained to be a very effective covert operative that could infiltrate any situation and get the intelligence that they needed, and then just kind of like quietly leave, like any good intel operative.
Yes, and that people wouldn't think that a kid would be doing that. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were used as a teenager
Yeah.
for these operations, excuse me, involving elite organizations with lots of rich and powerful people. So, I mean, how would that work? Would there be like just a bunch of teenagers that come kind of come in at a certain time of the party? I mean, I've heard others say that these parties often with elites, up to a certain time everything is kind of pretty regular, but then at a certain time, whether it's midnight or something like that, then all of a sudden you get the children being brought in, and then that's when all of the debauchery begins.
So I would say both can be true. One, quite a few of them were pool parties, so that could be done during the day. And there was a few instances where we had some. I was sent in teams of three, where something would happen and one of the guys would get in trouble. We'd have to run away after one of us looking for information in, like, say, the pool house. Maybe that was where the actual information was that we were looking for. There's also on the other side of it where I was a gymnast, so I also was trained in pole dancing. So there were aspects of that were more salacious. And especially as I got older, I was used more salaciously, 14, 15. Any younger than that would have been hidden.
Let's see. So at some point, you're taken to an underground facility and you meet a 9 foot tall reptilian. So, yeah, was that part of your training as a teenager?
I believe they were trying to get us prepared. So the second part of this story about going to meet the reptilian was that they took us to the looking glass experience where they saw our future. So they had already known that I was going to go into a space. I don't know what to call it. A I mean, some sort of space force, right? That's what I'm just going to say. Some sort of space force group. And so they wanted me to get prepared by probably my nervous system being prepared because it was very intense. It was very extreme. When they spoke to me, it was like it took over my whole body, and it spoke telepathically. And so it felt like I was paralyzed when it talked to me. And so I think it was they were preparing us to have interactions with them in the future.
So it took over your body. You're communicating with it, or it's communicating with you. Obviously, it has very powerful psychic abilities, so it takes over the body,
Yeah.
and you're hearing it in your head. I mean,
Yes.
what emotions were you feeling while that was happening?
Terror. Absolute terror. Yes, it was the scariest, and I would say the most intimidating thing that's still ever happened to me. I've met them and experienced them later on a few times, but there is nothing like that first time. And all he said to me, because he was a royal being, so the royal beings have an even stronger vibration than the some of the other ones. The royal ones have wings. Um, and all he said to me was, "You don't have," what did he say? "You don't have to fear me today." And the way he said it was so extreme and intense that it paralyzed literally my muscles. Like I couldn't move for a while. It sounded like hissing was like moving through my whole body, like just as they spoke. It was strange.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard others describe that first encounter with these Draco reptilians that have that kind of telepathic communication, and yeah, they describe just what you did. That it's like they take hold, and
Yeah,
it's a terrifying experience.
yeah.
Oh,
Even
so
when they're being nice,
right, okay, okay,
doesn't matter.
okay. So there was nothing in your training that prepared you for that. What about later on? I mean, were you trained to be able to communicate with these beings in a way where you wouldn't feel terror? I mean, or maybe like your altar. Was your altar trained in a way so that what Mia 369 could
Yeah.
communicate with the Draco, more effective way?
Yes, right before. So there's two parts to that. One is there I had an implant which is still there in the back of my head, which is where I get all kinds of energy weapons and terrible things that aimed at. But prior to, so that I can hear all alien speech is just comes out as English to me. I can't read it, but I can hear it. And then the second part of that is right literally within, 5 minutes prior to meeting that reptilian, we were educated on them in another separate room. They brought up some holograms of, I think it was three different beings that we might encounter, and gave us information on them, like opened up the hologram in the middle so that we could see their insides, told us about like um, what type of air or oxygen or CO2 or whatever it was they were breathing, and what type of anatomy they had that was similar to ours. So they kind of explained some things prior to that meeting.
Okay. So you want to tell us about the time machine? I think you mentioned a little bit
Yeah.
about it, where you could see the future. You saw aliens in military uniforms
Yeah.
taking hundreds of people to off-world locations, and there were protests, people demanding disclosure, riots in the background. So yeah, you want to explain all of that?
Yes, so I was 15. It was the next day from meeting that reptilian at the same Houston underground base. There was, oh, sorry, what were you? I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Like
What was
the
the question?
time machine and seeing
Oh, the
the
time, yes. So Project Looking Glass is what some people call it, and I think that there are different ways to do it. For us, it was a ball of mercury, and I don't want to say it's just some regular mercury. I'm sure it's ET mercury from some other space that has some special component to it. But I was set on a chair in a science lab, and they put things on my foreheads and on my fingers, and then turned on this, I don't know, it was just a ball of mercury that was like encased in something that was glass, and they had computer monitors all around us. And so as they turned it on, the whole thing lit up, and it was like purple, green, and blue, and turned into a cube that like surrounded the entire ball. And then a ribbon went around that, and it showed and turned into a screen, and that screen was my perspective from my eyes, and they can move forward in time and backwards in time. So they just moved through what they could get at that time, and they got those events. So they got the disclosure protest outside the White House. They got yeah, going into some spacefaring experience that I had later on in life. They saw some sort of, I need a drink of water, sorry. Okay. Um, some sort of courtroom, so some court proceeding. These are all things I don't think either one of those things have happened yet. I also don't know if those things are still going to happen. But like I said, that was the information that like began the extreme programming right after that. Because once they saw that I was going to become a problem to them in the future, they started the like self-sabotaging, self-destruct, really intense self-harm programming that came later.
Now, in the future, you saw aliens in
Yeah.
military uniforms. So we're talking
Yeah.
aliens wearing kind of like US military uniforms, or kind of like an off-world military, and that they were taking hundreds of people to these off-world locations. So, people would be interested. Was that like a culling, or was that like a kind of evacuation?
No, this was more like military already in and of other, I would say, galaxies, solar systems, different places that I went, different experiences that I had while I was in there during those two 20 and back tours. That's from my knowledge so far. I'm getting my memories back more every day.
Okay. So you want to tell us about the abduction experience with 3 gray aliens and 2 taller beings?
Yes, so I was 17. I had just signed up for the army. My sister was throwing me a going away party. I had went to sleep. I had had a sexual assault happen at the same time. And then I had gone to sleep, and then I woke up. Then was floating through the ceiling, and I was pulled underneath the ship, set on top of a table. Excuse me. And there were 3 smaller gray beings, and then there were 2 bigger. If you read Elena Danon's Alien Races book, they look like the Matron. Those There was 2 of them that were like overseeing the other 3. The 3 were the ones that were actually doing, the things that they do, the probing, taking blood, the I think that was about it. And I do think they impregnated me on purpose, because within, I want to say, a week, a week or 2, I was meant to leave for the army, and I actually went to get on the airplane, and I was told I was pregnant, and that I had just found that out.
Right. So this clearly happened before you joined the army, but
Yeah,
you did eventually join the U.S. Army
yeah.
at age 18. So, yeah, well, what influenced you to join the army?
So my dad and my stepdad had both been in the military, and both had been in the army. I had dropped out of school, I want to say, first day of my sophomore year. I had just, because of all the programming and all the stuff I had going on at home, I didn't care about school. I didn't really want anything to do with the idea of popularity and people being looked at a certain way. I didn't get along well with my peers. So I was not interested in school. I got put into an alternative school. And then that drove me nuts because it was too easy. I definitely have an intelligence that's higher than some. I'll say that. I was allotted to pick whatever job I wanted in the army. I chose to be a networking specialist, so computer networking.
Okay, so you're now in the army. You've done your basic training and all of that, and a U.S. Air Force officer approaches you and offers you a position. So you want to tell us about what that Air Force officer offered you?
So what he said to me was probably a little different than what actually happened. I think it was just a basic opportunity to go to space, was the way he said it. He took me into a private room through my first sergeant, who I was working with personally as his assistant at the time. Um, he told me I couldn't tell anyone. He told me no one would know I was going to go. And he also said I wouldn't remember it when I got back. And I had been taken out of I was supposed to go to Germany when I first went in the military. I was really excited about that because I was from Washington. And then I ended up going right back to Fort Lewis, which was because, like, behind the scenes, because the MK Ultra and the projects wanted me closer to Fort Lewis. So they just ended up sending me there. But so they changed my order. So I was really upset that I had to go home. I didn't want to go home. And when someone offers you a contract to go to space, you don't say no.
Okay, so you sign up or you say yes. So do you remember exactly what happened in terms of you say yes, and then I mean, you go through a induction process. I know you go to the moon, spend 3 days on the moon. So yeah, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it was really interesting. So I had a boyfriend at the time who was a super genius. He was way smarter than I was. And I didn't know, and he didn't know that we were both going to be there. It was literally the next day. They came and got me and took me to McCord Air Force Base, which is literally next door to Fort Lewis. And we went to an underground terminal. There was a ship there that kind of looked like a fighter jet I don't know. I used to say like fighter jet rocket, which makes no sense, but I didn't know how else to explain it. Like the impact or the whatever it is that they're using to move around space is in the center, and the rest of it kind of looked like a fighter jet, which was very interesting. But so we came out of the ground, and then we went through a different time space. So I don't know if anyone has seen the new Marvel movies where they explain time jumping and where you're jumping space and time at the same time. So you're not having to travel as far. It's just one type of space travel. We did that to the moon, but it did take 3 days to get there still, which was very interesting. The only difference between like the Marvel movie and like what actually we did was it was more circular pattern, and the other one and the movie is like I think it's an octagon or something like that. I don't know, but I think it's very interesting that some of these movies have a lot of really true information that people should really start questioning.
Well,
So
that's actually surprising that it took 3 days
yeah,
for the craft traveling from McCord Air Base to the moon. It took 3 days.
yeah.
Do you remember anything about the craft that was taking you in the 3 days you were on that craft?
I
What it
remember it
was
was
like?
small. It was very small, and it was just a few people. It was circular. Like I said, that like the engine was circular, so all the rooms around it were circular. That was a big pattern in space. There was a lot of the different types of bases and things like that had a circular pattern. I think just aerodynamically that was best for them. When we got to the moon, that was another 3 days too. I think it was more of an acclimation to being in space, an acclimation to seeing that surroundings around us all the time. Because when we got to the moon, we weren't going to have that for a few days. So I think it was just kind of an initiation into this new surrounding that we were going to be a part of.
Okay, so you spend 3 days on the moon getting assignments, uniforms. So you wanna explain what that was like, and did you sign papers?
Yes, we always signed papers. There was lots of papers, but paper isn't the right word. So we had clear. I would liken it to resin like iPad things. So everything was documented and signed on those things. Everybody was signed in and out. One of them when they got there. We were also put into med beds for those 3 days, just for a few hours, and we were told that that would heal any minor in conflicts that we had or dis-ease of any type that our body was going through, and that we were told that we had to take care of our bodies from now on. It was highly pushed to make sure to take care of yourself. There's a big discrepancy against humans and other races out there in space life. There's kind of a hierarchy and a social ranking system, and that we are kind of in the lower ends of. So we do our best to like take care of ourselves, and it was a lot of briefings about that. We talked about how I was going to study psychology and be someone who worked with bringing better reputation to the humans through just interactions with other races.
So what year was this that you actually went to the moon base? I mean, you're 18 years old, so
Yeah, I was
when did that happen?
19. So it was 2004. I went in the military at 18 and 2003. So I believe it was 2004. Yeah.
So 2004. Now, you talked about them saying you needed to take care of your body,
Yeah.
of your original body. So as far as you know, your 20 and back, that was using your original body. That wasn't using a clone body where the original was placed in a safe area and a clone was created, consciousness transferred. I've heard others describe a process like that.
Yes, on the way back when I may not have the memory of that yet, but on the way back I do remember the consciousness transfer between the timeline that I had previously been in and the one that I was in now. So there's a few options. They could have killed me. They could have definitely cloned me. They could, I mean, there's a few different options. I'm not 100% on the leaving part. It felt very, which they have down to a science now. So it was seamless for me. I didn't notice anything different or special. I just ended up, I just signed, I didn't sign papers on Earth, but I signed them on the moon when we got there. Switching branches wasn't a thing because it was secret.
So now we're going to kind of look at your forward duty station assignment, I guess, to Alpha Centauri outpost 347, Mars, Venus, and Saturn. So yeah, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so outpost 347 was in Alpha Centauri. It was the officer school. So I went there, both me and my boyfriend at the time, um, went there together. And I know he studied something different, but I also don't really want to go into his life too much. Um, there were extra human classes, so I ended up taking 5 years because humans had to acclimate to space. So we had our own like separate little agendas that we had to get through extra time wise. Um, I ended up leaving my boyfriend there at the time and dating one of my instructors. And prior to Venus, we actually went on a 1 year. I think there's another slide. It might be the next slide. The Stargate team. Oh no, that's what I was talking about right now, and I can't read. Yep, the Stargate team was 1 year. It was a portal, so a manufactured portal, literally just like the TV series, which I think is, again, I mean, people should be aware of what the things that they're watching. There are reasons for that. We jumped 12 times, so once a month, and I got promoted I got promoted first after officer school, second lieutenant. On the Stargate team, I got promoted to first lieutenant.
Okay, so in the secret space program, you're an officer. You're being promoted,
Yeah.
and Alpha Centauri is where there's a officer training school, and you were there
Yeah.
for, did you say 3 years, 4 years, going through
Well,
the
that was
training?
5 years. The first 5 years was there because the 4 years was school, and then the fifth year, or the first year, was human acclimation and like education on, I mean, learning about the chakras, learning about energy, learning about other species, learning about things that most other races already know. So there was a year of that. And then the 4 years of just regular school. What was the other question?
Okay, and so now, so you completed your officer training at this Alpha
Yeah.
Centauri outpost.
Yeah.
Were there extraterrestrials involved in the training, or was it all kind of like Earth military people?
There was only 5 humans there. This was an outpost for, I believe, I mean, I'm not going to say the galaxy, that's huge, but a quadrant or a portion of the galaxy sent their officers to train there. It was kind of a neutral zone for all races and whoever was a part of, and it could be the race is part of the Federation. I'm honestly not 100% sure, and I don't want to speak on things that I don't know. There was definitely some sort of coalition that was working together to have people training together.
Okay, so there's some kind of extraterrestrial coalition
Yeah,
that had helped the Earth military or the Earth Alliance, whatever we want to call it,
sure.
set up this officer training outpost there in the Alpha Centauri system. Okay, now, so after that, your first duty assignment is Venus.
Yes.
So yeah, you want to tell us? So yeah, you were, I guess. Well, what happened? What duties did you have on Venus?
Like most people who have been in the military at some point in their life, they know that there's not a lot of doing your job that happens in the military. There's a lot of policing and helping and security and different types of mediocre things. I was there doing security for some botanist Arcturians. So I was helping them, aiding them working on serums to help sick people, for other people around the galaxy. That is a very highly evolved race. So they have a really amazing technology, and they're just amazing beings. So I was just learning everything I could. Um, there wasn't much I could do. The military did start to like stifle me and my ability to help them. And I'm not sure why. They must have had their own agenda for that. I was very unhappy with it.
So what did the Arcturians look like?
So they were blue, and most of them had gold tribal tattoos all over their whole bodies. They had like protruding little blue bone structures here. I'm like I don't think I've said yet. I'm working with a digital designer who is going to help me do some more pictures. I already am working on the one with the ship. We have a sketch of that here today, but there are going to be many others where I give lots of pictures about these experiences.
So in performing your duties, was it you, Morgan, or was it the altar that had been created, me as 369?
It was Morgan. It was always Morgan. It was me, and she was always taken out for very short trips. She was hidden. She was very, very hidden. It was only very specific things that needed to be done behind the scenes where nobody else saw. So even me, obviously, you know.
Okay, so you're doing the secret space program 20 and back as Morgan, and but at certain times someone in the hierarchy knows about your altar, activates your altar, it does a mission, and then end of the mission comes back and you have no memory of that.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. All right, so your next duty station was Mars, and you were military police for major cities. So yeah, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, we called it Mars Max, and I do kind of wonder if it was, I mean, it felt like and seemed like a prison planet to me. I know that I've heard rumors on some of these shows before that like Mars was freed and everybody's all happy there, but the conditions of the places that I was policing were really sad, really destitute. They didn't have any way to leave. There was no resources there for them, and so there were just there the planet itself was being mined. Like there was a lot of different materials that other species wanted. So there was like fighting over the mines. And so those types of, it was just really dense and, how do I say, cutthroat. Like you had to, it was every man for himself, a lot of begging, a lot of it was sad. It was a sad place. So even if it was freed, it needed help.
Okay, so Mars, that kind of Mars, that Mad Max kind of
Yeah.
metaphor applies to Mars, and so the cities there really weren't much in the way of like what we would consider to be a modern city with
Yeah.
conveniences and
Yeah.
services. It's more like I guess a Wild West town.
Yes. Even the water, it was difficult for them to get drinking water. It needed to be processed. And so we would help them with that the best that we could. There's also big cities. So there wasn't a lot we could do. We did the best we could. I didn't go a bunch of places. I kind of stayed on one area inside. So I don't have a whole lot of information.
Okay, so after Mars, your next duty assignment was Saturn. So yeah, you want to tell us about Saturn?
Saturn, so since I had become a major once I got to Saturn, or actually, I think I was becoming a major when I was leaving Saturn, something like that. I was in the dog and pony show of the military. I wasn't really a part of anything at the time. And so I was taken there. So Saturn has all kinds of bases inside of it. It's huge. There's lots of different just little chunks of places all over where it has different sections of different galaxy people using those areas. But in the core of it, there is a triangle of 3 separate bases that are connected by hypertunnels. And those hypertunnels, there it's a bronze, a silver, and a gold base. The gold base was the reptilians, and they had shut it down. They didn't use it, but they didn't allow other people to use it. There was a silver base that had team building exercises for military personnel. So it had like a giant, I mean, mega giant, huge chessboard that you could see literally as the first thing you could see when you came into the structure on the inside. And then the bronze base was used for galactic intel. So we would have lots of, I mean, thousands of beings would come there. That's what I was doing, was just sitting in and listening to, being a fly on the wall to the different galactic organizations, coalitions, federations, whatever you want to call them, when they all got together and figured out what people needed, what kind of supplies. And I was kind of being readied for getting my ship.
Tunnel system on Saturn. We're talking about the kind of rocky interior of Saturn, and was there a way of getting there? I mean, one way, of course, would be through ship, but going through the highly pressurized atmosphere could be
Yeah.
crushing for a lot of ships. So, was there a kind of portal used to transport into that tunnel system inside of the rocky core of Saturn?
I honestly, I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not gonna say things that I don't know the answer to. I know that it was seamless going there too. It was very easy and effortless. So, however it didn't seem, it kind of seemed like just a different shield, a different type of shield. So maybe there are specialized shields for certain ships that can go into certain places. That's my guess.
Okay, okay. Now, some people say, well, there've been some sources that say that Saturn was used by the Anunnaki, or was a planet belonging to the Anunnaki. Did you see anything that reflected that?
I mean, that the silver and bronze base. So the bronze base itself, like I said, people using it from all over the galaxy. I mean, probably way farther away than that. Um, Around the outside of it were statues of all, or I wouldn't say all, statues of many of extinct races. So anyone, any race that had become extinct was kind of memorialized and set outside so that people knew what they were fighting for, like that it was very important, that everyone working together was important. So to me, that kind of shows that it's been there a long time and that those beings kind of were maybe being one of the originators of the people protecting. I don't know. I don't know a lot about the Anunnaki. Like, I don't know a lot about any of this stuff. Like, what I did want to say on here was that I just started getting my memories back at 33 years old. So about 6.5 years ago, didn't watch TV. I mean, I stopped watching movies the best I could. I mean, I've seen a few. I didn't get involved in the disclosure community very long, because I didn't want to mess with my own memories. I didn't want to get information that made one memory altered in any way, shape, or form. I have really good guides and space friends who help me. And that was my guidance, was, we don't want you to get your information switched with someone else. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know the information that's come out. I don't know the new stuff. I'm a student here learning as much as anyone else. I'm just telling my story that I remember.
Okay. Now, you already mentioned this Stargate team on Cortus that was used for planetary exploration
Yeah.
in the galaxy. Now, you want to tell us why it was considered dangerous, and how did the actual Stargate compare to the Stargate depicted in the SG-1 TV series?
It's very similar looking. It's definitely a different material. Um, it's almost weightless. There was not much of a, like in the Stargate one, it's almost like water, like they're walking through water. But this one was quite weightless. It did look kind of like water, but it was more of a metallic sheen. Yeah, see, theirs looked like water. What was the other question? Do you want to know? Oh, dangerous. Yeah. It was dangerous because we lost two people in that one year, because you couldn't. So the equipment could see what kind of foliage, what kind of climate, like what you were walking into in that way, so that we could be prepared for that. But animals and beings, they knew that there is a big risk in trying to guess what type of beings or what type of animals were going to be there. So that's how one of our companions died, was a giant animal, and the other one was weather.
Okay. So how did the reptilians kind of get involved in this Stargate program? You talked a little bit about one of the reptilians wanting an update on the planetary exploration missions, and that kind of indicated that they were ultimately in control of the missions rather than humans. So you want to explain what role the reptilians played?
To my knowledge, we didn't even know why they were there. We didn't understand. We thought that this was a human thing. And I think it was a human thing. I think maybe they needed a world for something specific for their purpose. I think that humans and reptilians work together on and off. And I think they have a very temperamental relationship. And I think that reptilians are pushy. So I don't think we say no a whole bunch. So I think they just had their own mission that one time. I don't think that they oversaw the entire program. I don't think it would have been as nice as it was, or as, I don't even know what the right word is. I don't think it would have been the way it was if it was run by reptilians, in my opinion.
Now, there was a secret mission to Venus uh, to find life forms existing in higher vibrational dimensions. Now, you already talked about Venus and the Arcturians. Is this a
Yeah.
different life form?
No, so this was, I think this was, I can't read what that says for some reason. It's really small on my end. I don't have my presentation up. The secret mission wasn't to Venus. It was for people who lived on Venus. It was for the Arcturians, and it was to a space. I do believe, if I don't think you have that on this slide, but I believe is Gula is the name of the planet. That was for the reptilians as well, to steal Mercury. They wanted Mercury. This planet was in the middle of a civil war, and so we went claiming we were going to help them, and instead stole Mercury while they were fighting each other.
Mhm.
But the dimensional doorway to Venus was how we got into the super city, where I worked with the Arcturians.
Mhm. I see. Now, you also had an interaction with a 10-foot tall mantid being that
Yeah.
uh, stuck a needle into your stomach and inserting eggs. So, yeah, what was going on with that?
I'm not sure what the purpose was, or how they thought they'd get away with that. I thought that was quite interesting. I was working on Venus. I had a girlfriend at the time who lived with me, but she had been away for that one night. So obviously my question was, maybe they were working with Mia, or wanting Mia to be used as a soldier for them. That's my guess. So because they use telekinesis, so they could probably get Mia to come out maybe more permanently, is probably what their motives were. I honestly don't know. I just woke up in the middle of the night with them, one hanging over my bed and telling me to go to sleep. And so I went to sleep, and they plunged in a syringe full of eggs in me. And I woke up the next day, like, knowing something wrong had happened. I've always been very intuitive. And so that being was definitely taken away and tried for breach of procedure.
So, what happened to the eggs that it inserted into you?
They took him out and I left. I left that base. I left right away. I was definitely not sticking around after that.
Okay. Well, tell us about the ship that was designed specifically for you and was grown from your DNA.
So they took a blood sample and they took a tissue sample, and then it was grown from in a hanger, almost like in a giant tube or a vat, for about the first 3 months, and it grew like tens of feet a day. It was a conscious organism. That's the best way I can say it. At least the shell, the inner shell. So it had like a bone structure to the, I mean, if you can see on the picture, like the all the corners of that are going to be just pure bone. Like anything that's blue, or the squiggly lines, that's all just stuff that is protecting over top of it. So it's this metal like, it's not metal, but metal and glass like substance that we put over top of it to protect it. But it took about 6 months for that to be fully grown. And it was a 20-man fighter ship.
And how was your DNA used for creating this ship? Was it used to somehow uh, be accessed by the kind of like, I don't know if it's an artificial intelligence or an organic or plasma intelligence that was associated with the ship? Was that why your DNA was used, that it would recognize you as being what, the commander or playing a leadership role?
Yes, so exactly. It was just for me to start her. So there was a console, a really big console that like came up to here. It had a hand gesture, like a almost like a ball, but it was a hand thing, so that it took the picture, or I don't know, like the almost like the whole palm print and fingers of my hand. Um, I was the only one that could start it. And that is a very similar thing that they did with technologies. Like on Cortus, we all three had buggies, hovering vehicles, and we all used hand sensors to turn them on. That is the type of technology I saw all over the place.
So if something happened to you, this 20-man ship wouldn't be able to operate. Is is that
Well,
correct?
that's one way. We had a backup system for sure. I'm sure that there were protocols put in place in case something did happen to me. Um, but right now, me remembering that, I got too much information to remember. Maybe I'll think about that one later. It's a good.
Right. Do you remember how you communicated with the ship or gave it commands? Was it through a console? Was it like mind to technology?
Yes, it was very telepathic. It was because my DNA was just part of that structure itself. It was a natural connection. There was no effort needed. I could feel its responses when I spoke questions to it.
And for the crew, I guess they would have to communicate with it, in a kind of more traditional way
Yeah.
through panels and so forth.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Now, okay, so um, at the end of your service, you go through an age regression process on the moon. So you're taken back after a 20-year program or two 20-year,
Yeah.
and you're put through age regression. So you want to describe that?
Yes. So the age regression was similar to, or at least the beds looked similar to like the Avatar movie, um, where they move their consciousness into the avatar themselves. So it looked kind of similar, like little pods. It had like a blue goo substance, and it had like a bunch of bubbles in it, and you just laid in that. There was an option on the ceiling of it to push sleep. So we were in there for 7 days for 7 hours. And we could just sleep through it, or we didn't have to. It was up to us.
And what do you remember about the process? Was it like a lot of chemicals? Was it high tech technology for the age regression?
It was very high tech technology. I just remember feeling like vibrations. So it was just a vibrational healing. I do believe cellular, I think that's what they said, biogenetically cellular healing through vibration. The water would like move.
Okay. All right. So you go through the age regression process on the moon, and then your long-term memories are blocked.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, do you remember anything of that, like that blocking process? Is that something you've regained subsequently? What they did?
Yeah, it would look like an MRI machine. And then they just set you in there, and there's a screen on the front, and it just starts like giving you pictures of your life, different beings, different duty stations, different badges, outfits, uniforms, different things like that, things that would trigger memories in the future. They couldn't block them all. I mean, there's just too much information, but just the major stuff.
Okay. So now you've gone through the programs. You're back um, serving in the army. Now you're kind of like enlisted, and then you go through the normal timeline. At what point did it become clear, or did you realize that that you were a threat to the projects and the malevolent ET species controlling them?
I I was 33 years old. I got the MK Ultra memories back pretty quickly after I had a random spiritual awakening, where all my chakras were activated all at once. I had an extreme encounter with that, where it like lifted me off the bed and like spun me around and dropped me on the floor, because it was so intense. And like a shot of rainbow energy like hit the back of my head. It felt like my brain was turning inside out. And I knew about space. I knew about my connections to other ETs. I knew about my gifts quite instantly after that. I had a conversation with some ETs right during that. They literally I was staying in a homeless shelter because I had become a drug addict during that time. I had a very intense experience with that, to try and soothe myself. I had all those memories that I didn't know I had. So there was just a lot of misery that I was trying to soothe. And I don't judge myself for that portion of my life at all.
Now, you do actually talk about in your book going back to Fort Lewis, and your original body was there, and
Yeah.
that. So yeah, you want to. I know we talked about that a bit at the beginning, but it seems that your original body was left at Fort Lewis.
Yeah, that's interesting that we just put that together. No, no. See, what I think it is that they're taking people from different timelines. So there's many of us happening all the time. There's an infinite amount of timelines happening all the time, and so they can switch. When I start talking about jumping timelines or jumping through space and time, you can jump to a space where there's another you. It's like going back in time and you are there, right? So this was just another aspect of me that they decided to take. I don't know. And I don't know what they did with the body. And I did have a fit about that. I was not happy that they didn't tell me exactly what they were going to do with it. So I was not an easy soldier. I'm going to say that. I have always been a very difficult. I definitely like to not just, I don't necessarily say break the rules, but I will definitely demand a reason for them.
Right, I see. Okay. Now you talk about your new gifts. So there's a slide you sent me where you have these gifts depicted. I don't know if you could read that, but yeah. You want to tell us about these new gifts that you've acquired?
So a lot of these gifts are, I'm not going to say random. They're not random. They're energetically timed specifically for specific things. I've teleported to the center of the galaxy where the black hole is an actual superhighway in conjunction with many other galaxies. And then came right back down. And that was fascinating because it felt like when I came back into my body or came back into this world, I mean, I'm not even sure which. It was different than just an out of body experience. It was different than, it felt like it was my physical body literally left this place and then came back and turned back on in like 3-inch boxes. It was a very wild experience. And then there's some other ones. I can see the past, present, and future of my life. That information is always available to me. I have a 360-degree screen around me at all times where I am able to see in between many other dimensions. So there is no one dimension. It's I and slash in my belief system, from what I've learned, we are all singularities. So that's what they mean when they say time doesn't exist, that no past, present, and future actually is real, because everything is happening all at once, because we are that singular point. And we just so happen to be in the lowest dimension where that point coalesces. So we are here. And so I am able to experience the other dimensions of space and time that not everyone can see.
Now, you've got a book, Manipulated Memories.
Yeah.
So you want to tell us about the contents of this book, and I believe you have 2 sequels planned, or there are various stages, and just tell us what your plans are for this book.
So this book is an empowerment book about all the things that we just talked about. For one, definitely talked about my experiences in space with MK Ultra, with some extreme programming that happened between me and a few other boys who were all we were all in the MK Ultra program together, and then like used against each other to try to take each other out. It was just their way of like sabotaging us and having us do it to each other so they didn't have to get involved. So there's some extreme, I do want to, there is a disclaimer at the beginning of the book that like no one under 16 needs to be reading it. It's just too gruesome. And there's also my spiritual awakening and the things that I've seen and the things that I get to experience. And it's only the beginning. The second book will be more on Mia's experience. It'll be the second enlistment might be in there. That I'm not sure if that'll be in the third book. It just depends on how long it takes me to get this one done. I have just finished the screenplay or I should say the first screenplay. It's a lot of information to get into one screenplay. So I think I'm going to make it a 2-part movie series for this first book. I love to write, and so I'm going to be writing a lot. I enjoy it. It's very therapeutic. It helped me heal this process. All these energy weapons and things that were used to try to keep me down actually ended up healing me and helping me. So I'm not a victim to this experience. I believe everyone came into this world with karma, and that's why the things that they go through happened. I don't feel like anyone is a victim, honestly. Yeah, so I have a few different types of, we can call them readings, so empowerment coaching and things like that are available on the website. It's Morgan Rae, Rae Johnson, author.com. And the book is available on Amazon and Kindle right now. Working on the audio version. And then there is a link to that on that website as well. There's also a donation button, which is helpful. This has been the most extreme thing that I could ever imagine happening to a person. To experience this, forget about it, and then relearn it and rewatch it was a very horrific experience for me. And this last 6.5 years, I've spent nothing but time healing, and it's a lot more grueling and painful than it might sound as me just having this conversation with you. But I am here to help others who have been targeted in some way, help them understand that their mind can be healed from absolutely anything. That if I could heal my mind from this, then everyone could heal the minds from whatever it is that ails them.
Well, I think you've done a wonderful job in being able to integrate an incredible range of experiences to make it coherent, and you're very succinct. And I do look forward to you coming out with Volume 2 and Volume 3, and I'd love to have you back to discuss more of your memories of service in the SSPs and what lies ahead. So I want to thank you, Morgan, for being on the show.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it so much. Glad to be here.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.